Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, a closer look at the U.S. Supreme Court ruling against lower courts issuing nationwide injunctions. Also tonight, a new study focuses on how cancer grows and changes, and a look at the relationship between antibiotics and superbugs. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. The Maricopa County Recorder's Office is sending letters to 83,000 county voters to correct a previous letter that warned that the recipients would be placed on an inactive voter list if they didn't update their voter registration in 90 days. Now, that warning letter was a mistake. County Recorder Justin Heap blamed the mistake on a vendor. Heap's fellow Republicans on the County Board of Supervisors were not amused. Board Chair Thomas Galvin called on Heap to apologize to his constituents. Of note, Heap is suing the board, and the board is countersuing over authority to administer elections, including voter registration. The U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to hear a case that could significantly impact how political campaigns are funded. Now, the case involves limits on how much political parties can spend in coordination with federal candidates. Those coordinated limits were set in the wake of the Watergate scandal, but Vice President J.D. Vance filed suit 3 years ago when he was a Senate candidate, claiming that the limits violate First Amendment rights. The National Republican Senatorial Committee and the GOP Congressional Committee have since joined that suit. And on Capitol Hill, the Senate continues to work on its version of President Trump's domestic policy bill. The Senate version would add at least $3.3 trillion to the national debt over the next 10 years. That's according to the Congressional Budget Office. That increased debt is likely to cause problems in the House, which must give final approval to the measure. The White House today reiterated the president's Friday deadline to get the deal done.
The White House and the president himself have been in touch with lawmakers all weekend long to get this bill passed, and they are working very hard to do so. It remains a top priority for the president.
Not exactly a top priority for Elon Musk. The president's former advisor is not pleased with the policy bill, calling Republicans, quote, the Porky Pig Party. Arizona Democratic Senator Mark Kelly finds himself agreeing with Musk, kinda.
I don't agree with Elon on everything, but on this, Elon's right. They're about to add up to $5 trillion, but for what's in this legislation, $3.3 trillion to the debt to give a big tax cut to the wealthiest Americans. At the same time, the thing that Elon cares about, I care about it as well, is the cuts in solar and wind renewable energy tax credits. This is basically all the energy that we now add to the grid every year, and my Republican colleagues want to take this away. So on this, we're on Elon's side. But the thing he didn't mention, which is also my biggest concern here, is they want to kick 17 million people off their health care. And again, just to give a big tax cut to the rich.
Kelly did not comment on Musk, adding that it's, quote, time for a new political party that actually cares about the people. The U.S. Supreme Court last week ruled against lower courts issuing nationwide injunctions. The case involved President Trump's executive order against birthright citizenship. The Supreme Court ruled against a nationwide block to that order, but did not directly address birthright citizenship. Joining us now is Roy Herrera, founding partner, Herrera Arellano LLP. Roy, always a pleasure. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, the overriding, I think the biggest thing about that particular decision are these nationwide injunctions by lower courts. What exactly did the court rule, the higher court?
So let me just start with what a nationwide injunction is. The court also refers to them as universal injunctions, but basically what they are is an injunction that's issued by the district court, which is the lowest level of the federal court system, that essentially would block the implementation of a rule or a law nationwide. So let's say a federal judge here in the District of Arizona could issue a universal nationwide injunction, and that would mean that a law that it's blocking, that judge is blocking, can't be implemented in, let's say, the Southern District of New York or something like that. And it traditionally has been a fairly common practice for the district court judges to be able to issue those kinds of injunctions. And what we had here in this particular case is the Supreme Court severely limiting, if not eliminating, the ability of a district court judge to issue an injunction that is that wide in scope.
What is the reasoning behind allowing such a lower court to have that much power?
So the argument for nationwide injunctions or universal injunctions is that there are certain policies or laws where it is appropriate to have some form of uniform relief. So let's say there's a sort of universal principle of constitutional law, like a fundamental constitutional right, for example. It makes sense to be able to essentially block an implementation of a law that would violate that universal or fundamental constitutional right, because otherwise you'd be in a situation where different jurisdictions would have different rules. So you could be in one particular jurisdiction and a law could apply to you, take away your right, let's say, and then in another jurisdiction the law wouldn't apply. And so the argument is you have to be able to allow district court judges to do that because that is what is necessary.
So what the Supreme Court says, though, is yes, in that particular district you can block it, but not everywhere else?
So in the birthright citizenship case, as you mentioned, they don't get to the merits of the case at all. I know we'll talk about that in a moment. But on the procedural grounds, it says that basically the district court judges, the relief they granted, these universal injunctions, were inappropriate because they went beyond what was necessary to provide complete relief to the litigants, the parties before the court. So this concept of complete relief is really important, I think, going forward. This is the sort of standard now, is that a district court judge can only provide complete relief to the parties before the court. That would mean, technically speaking, only the parties that are plaintiffs in a particular lawsuit. And so what we are now kind of left with, and again, this is going to be unpacked a lot by the lower courts after this decision, there's a lot of open questions still, is a situation where in some jurisdictions you might see, let's say, again, a federal judge down here in the District of Arizona rule a certain way, issue an injunction for plaintiffs in the particular case before that judge. That injunction could potentially apply to the District of Arizona, but it wouldn't apply, let's say, again, in the Southern District of New York.
Okay, but what if the Southern District of New York takes up that case or takes up they can't take up the case in Arizona,
right,
but can they take up a similar case? Can you, I mean, let's do a hypothetical here. Let's say the president, executive order, we all have to wear red T-shirts. Okay, we all have to wear red T-shirts.
Right.
I mean, can district courts around the country all say, nope, you do not have to do this? Or are there going to be some places where you got to wear red T-shirts?
Well, this goes back to the sort of argument for universal injunctions, because let's say the law is everyone has to wear a red T-shirt. In one jurisdiction, you can find a judge that says, well, that law is unconstitutional. In another district, another jurisdiction, a judge can say, no, it is constitutional, and therefore you're not allowed to wear red T-shirts. So again, we're in this place where there isn't a uniform application of the law, which doesn't make a lot of sense until, of course, the merits of the case ultimately go up to the U.S. Supreme Court. The arguments, I think, against universal injunctions that a lot of folks would make, including some of the Supreme Court justices in the majority, would be that actually it is good that we allow these issues to be adjudicated in different jurisdictions before different judges. The Supreme Court benefits from that kind of more organic consideration before they make an ultimate decision.
They're asking for a bigger workload. It sounds like what they're asking for.
Well, certainly, I mean, when we talk about the birthright citizenship specifically, I think what you're going to see is a lot more litigation.
Let's talk about birthright citizenship. What exactly happened here?
Well, again, we didn't get a decision on the merits. That is to say, we didn't get a decision on whether this executive order that the Trump administration has issued on birthright citizenship is constitutional under the 14th Amendment. That has still not been decided. Eventually, that will probably get to the Supreme Court, but right now, that is not the case. So what is happening now is the three existing cases that went on appeal up to the Supreme Court, the judges are now going to have to decide what is appropriate relief under this new standard that the Supreme Court has issued. Now, I think what we'll see is those district court judges will issue new injunctions. There'll be different injunctions, more narrow injunctions. But then the question is, again, how do we get to a place where, let's say, anyone, perhaps children that are going to be born and affected by this executive order, where they all are treated the same? That, I think, is going to be a big question going forward.
Isn't there like a 30-day pause here before this goes into effect? There's some sort of 30-day I don't know, break or something here?
That's right. So the original executive order has this sort of 30-day implementation delay. It basically says that it doesn't go into effect until 30 days after the effective date of the EO. So now the clock essentially restarts. And again, you're going to see the district court judges in those cases issue new injunctions. And then you're also going to see, and we've already seen, new litigation.
Right, right. Overall here, this block against the universal injunctions, How big a deal is this, not just for this president, but for future presidents? Because past presidents, including Presidents Obama and Biden, they've not been pleased with lower courts issuing these kinds of things.
It's a big deal because I think, again, you're going to have potentially this situation where people in different jurisdictions are treated in different ways for at least a period of time, at least until the merits of a particular case gets to the U.S. Supreme Court. There's, of course, a time lag there. So you're going to be in this situation where, again, people are being treated differently. There are some alternatives that the Supreme Court suggests in its decision as a different way to get at this sort of same concept of more uniform relief. So, for example, the court points to class actions as a potential way to now assert claims. And so I think that is what we're going to see. We've already seen a new class action, a nationwide class action lawsuit filed related to the birthright citizenship EO. I think we're going to see that going forward with any kind of executive order from any president going forward. It's going to be the new way, I think, to try to block an implementation of a law.
But my impression of class action lawsuits is they take time. I mean, it doesn't sound like it took too long for this one to happen.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They take time, and also there's now going to be new questions. Let's say that's the new vehicle for challenging executive orders. There's the question of class certification, right? So who is in the class? Does a class get certified? All of this is under a different area of the law, and that's all going to get spelled out over the years, I think.
Last question. Justice Sotomayor was in dissent. She called this a travesty for the rule of law. That seems a bit harsh.
Well, again, you know, I'll end where I started, which is, let's say again, there's a law that's going to take away fundamental constitutional right. You could be, and if you're sort of taking the majority's opinion to its logical conclusion, be in a situation where some people are being protected by a particular judge in a particular jurisdiction, and some people in a different jurisdiction are not. And so perhaps their constitutional rights are being taken away. And it's that disparity, I think, that Sotomayor is pointing at.
The possibility is there.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Roy Herrera, good stuff, good information. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
This is the moment that you've been waiting for.
On your marks, get set, go!
Discover extraordinary lost worlds.
I know scientists that would give their right arm for this.
This is heaven. Hope y'all ready.
Calling all Arizona foodies. Have you ever wanted to sit at the table with Chef Mark Tarbell on Check Please Arizona?
Boom, drop the mic.
I wanted a little spice in my life.
Arizona PBS is currently taking guest applications in preparation for the show's upcoming 13th season. To submit an application, visit azpbs.org/checkplease or scan the QR code on your screen.
ASU researchers are part of a national study looking at advancing personalized cancer detection and treatment. The goal is to better find out how and why cancer spreads and mutates. And to learn more, we welcome Ken Buetow, director of ASU Center for Evolution and Medicine. Welcome to Arizona Horizon. Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
You betcha. All right, so this is, I kind of gave a general thing here, identifying what makes cancer so cancerous.
Well, and indeed, we all are familiar with people who, we've all had a personal experience with people who've gotten cancer. And we've made tremendous progress in the last decade and a half with personalized medicine, treating the cancers and the molecular characteristics. But we also know that a fair number of people unfortunately have the cancer come back, even if they've had remission or suddenly the cancer treatment starts working. The purpose of this research program is to literally identify what is the underlying mechanisms that cause the cancer to be able to evade the treatments, and then use those to have next generation targeted therapies.
So the underlying mechanism that allows you to fight the cancer and to get it into remission may not be the same mechanism that keeps it away.
Absolutely. What we've seen with, again, a decade of doing next generation genomic characterizations and molecular profiling tumors is that we can do a good job of characterizing the initial state of the cancer, but what happens is the cancer changes over time. It changes in response to the particular therapies that we're using. And in the goal of this research program is to identify how it changes and then to utilize those changes to direct our next therapy.
Does it change? Let's say that something affects one side of the body and then it metastasizes, and you got the other side of the body affected. Different organs are affected. Does the cancer involved? Is it all the same? Does it mutate the same? Is the genetic component the same?
No, and that's part of the challenge that we face. Is that the cancer itself is rapidly changing all the time in response to the body's attempt to fight it, as well as whatever we do in our treatments. And what we're really attempting to do here is essentially embrace the Wayne Gretzky strategy of cancer therapy. So rather than treating the cancer we see today, what we want to do is characterize the tumor and then evaluate where we think the tumor is going and use that as our tools to direct our next therapies.
Yeah, see the play before it happens, in other words.
Exactly.
And it's a $142 million federal grant. You're working with some pretty big institutions here, MIT and Stanford and such. And the focus at ASU sounds like it's computer modeling, something along those lines?
Indeed. Our goal in the ASU-funded portion of this program is to literally be the group that identifies how is it that cancer is resisting the treatment. What are the specific molecular mechanisms that the cancer uses? And we're using state-of-the-art computational methods. We're bringing to bear all the state-of-the-art genomics analysis and, of course, machine learning and artificial intelligence approaches as well.
The state-of-the-art situation that you talked about there, obviously you're doing research to improve that. How far along is the state-of-the-art right now?
We have preliminary clues that are what we're using to start with. But to be honest, one of the things that's really novel about this particular research program through ARPA-H, Advanced Research Projects Agency, is that we're going to be studying and collecting molecular samples over time with cancer patients. So we're going to have a absolutely novel collection of material for our statistical and computational model.
And again, this is tumor evolution, this is molecular resistance, and all this kind of business. And this is by way of clinical trials?
So embedded in this particular research program is a clinical trial. So not only will we be doing the basic science research in real time, but in real time, the findings that we're having in our basic research will be applied in a clinical trial to we believe, to save lives, to actually redirect the paradigm of how cancer is being treated.
Wow, that sounds very exciting. And Mayo Clinic teams are involved with this?
So it's we have a collection from a variety of different groups, our new American University partnerships at ASU, from multiple different departments, of School of Complex Adaptive Systems. We have people from the Biodesign Institute, but then also we have a long-standing relationship with our colleagues at Mayo Clinic, both in Mayo Clinic Arizona and Mayo Clinic Rochester.
So last question here, this $142 million, it's spread all out. You guys are going to get your share to do your computer modeling in the clinical trial. But MIT, Stanford, UCSD, I think Brigham and Women's Hospital also involved. There's got to be a sharing, a collaboration here.
Oh, and that's one of the really cool things about this. So we're creating, as part of this broader program, a platform where all of the data that's being generated as this can be shared among all the participants, but more importantly, will ultimately be shared with a much broader research community.
I was going to ask about that data. Where does it go from here?
The idea is that what we hope is that this will just be the foundation of a whole new generation of new cancer therapeutics.
Well, it certainly sounds encouraging. Ken Buetow, again, ASU Center for Evolution and Medicine. Good luck. We're all rooting for you.
Thank you.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, the latest twists and turns in the effort to pass President Trump's big budget bill. That's coming up at 6 on Arizona PBS.
Another research project at ASU is using portable DNA sequencing to better understand how the overuse of antibiotics can lead to superbugs. Joining us now is Lee Voth-Geddert from ASU's Biodesign Center for Health through Microbiomes. Welcome to Arizona Horizon. You betcha. All right, let's start with some semantic. What is a superbug?
Yeah, so a superbug is really kind of thinking about a bacteria that has gained the ability to evade most, if not all, our antibiotics that we have available to us. So if we get that specific bug that would be a pathogen, then we don't have the antibiotics that we could take to be able to fight that infection.
How common are these superbugs?
They're getting more and more common.
Yeah.
There's degrees. We kind of have a scale of severity, and CDC actually has kind of a list of bugs that we're tracking to make sure that we're identifying the trends. If they're going in bad directions, we know we can kind of shift or potentially like roll out different policies for how we might kind of handle antibiotic usage.
And antibiotic usage, that is the key here. The more antibiotics you use, it seems like the superbugs recognize it and say we're going to develop into something else?
Yeah, so really it's the kind of the pressures of these antibiotics. And so, to take an example of the human body, let's say we have 100 bacteria in our human body. We take an antibiotic that takes care of 95 of them, but we still have 5 that might be just a little bit more resistant to the antibiotic that we just took. And now those are still there when we stop taking the antibiotic, and they have room to grow. And so that's kind of how that pressure of the antibiotic forces growth of new resistant strains.
And this is a danger to humans, animals as well, a danger to the environment as well?
Yeah, so we think about the environment as where it kind of circulates, and we think about the health of the animals and the humans. So we really kind of think about the One Health aspect of this. We're really focused on humans, but we're all connected in this really complicated systems of systems.
All right, now your research is in tandem, I'm reading here, from the UN and Indonesia, and it basically involves, what, a handheld DNA device?
Yeah, so if you're okay with a little show and tell,
please.
I brought the device here. So literally, this is kind of trying to take our kind of gold standard science in our laboratories and get it into hands on people in the field, the frontline workers that we have. And so literally, it looks like a stapler, to be honest with you.
Yes.
But we just plug it into a laptop, and we're able to actually do DNA sequencing in the field and be able to kind of take what we have in terms of the laboratories and bring it to people that can use that information.
Okay, but when what do you do? Do you stick it in water? Do you put it in the air? What do you do?
Great question. So we're able to we have our little pipettes and all the kind of nerdy stuff here, and we take it and we take our sample and then we put it into the DNA sequencing device to see what type of DNA is in that device or in that sample that we took. So it could be water, it could be poop, it could be waste out of a slaughterhouse.
Yes. Well, I saw that you were looking at slaughterhouse, like 6 chicken slaughterhouses in Indonesia, and they have their own antibiotic surveillance system. Is that true?
Yeah, and Indonesia is doing a pretty good job in terms of rolling it out. It's tricky. So Indonesia has like 14,000 different islands. So in terms of thinking about a national surveillance system, that's a tricky task. And so things like this, where we can decentralize the monitoring systems, it can be a really powerful tool. But that can apply here at home, too.
Right, right. And you can tell when some of this bad stuff is going into waterways, rivers, and such?
Yeah, so our core focus is trying to identify those kind of control points, the points where things in these different systems all convalesce. So think about a chicken slaughterhouse being kind of that point of animals coming in, the food going out to humans, and that waste going into the environment. So that's a really tantalizing kind of place to be able to monitor and potentially control kind of the resistance mechanisms that might get into the environment spread.
I tell you what, it sounds like before this thing came along, I mean, good luck against these superbugs. That must be difficult to control these things.
Yeah, we had our methods that we were able to use kind of in the labs, but it took fancy labs to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And so the more we can get, simpler tools into the hands of folks that are kind of on the front lines, the better.
Can be used with farms. What about these wet markets that we all grew so familiar with regarding COVID? Can be used there as well?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, anything you need sequenced, you can do it with this device, which makes it so powerful in terms of being able to see kind of new information that we weren't being able to before.
Bird flu?
Yep, they're actually working on that now in Indonesia and across the board. CDC is working on this as well.
Okay, so the whole idea here is to stop the spread of these superbugs. Is there hope? I mean, it sounds like such a daunting task with all these things around the world. This will help. Will it help enough?
Yeah, so it's one part of the solution, right? So we
Yes.
need kind of these, novel techniques, and we don't just, they're not just novel, they're necessary. So we have to be able to kind of take, kind of these new and emerging things and be able to implement them in the systems. So there's a couple parts to it. One is thinking about new antibiotics, and the other is thinking about stewardship for the antibiotics that we do have to make sure we can extend the life of their effectiveness.
Okay, and DNA sequencing, obviously a big deal. Portable DNA sequencing sounds like a really big deal. Can it be used in other theaters?
Absolutely, yeah. And so other theaters being, geography, absolutely. That's what we're working on. Other theaters being different types of samples, different types. You talked about, the wet markets, or even kind of, ag systems here, or even hospitals and monitoring resistance in those. All the different mediums, can really benefit.
Is there, last question here,
Yeah.
is there a security concern with this?
There is certainly, because we're focused on, kind of the water or poo or those types of things, we're a little less concerned about that. We have our kind of protocols in place to manage that type of data. But as that scales in terms of the quantity of data that we have, we'll have to certainly, we'll continue to take that into account.
Yeah, make sure you don't have individual DNA sequencing out there.
We're focused on the bacteria and the superbugs.
Yeah, among the masses. All right,
Yep.
Lee Voth Gettert, again, ASU and the portable, hold that thing up one more. Look at that thing. That's unbelievable. Congratulations on that. Good work. Thank you for joining us and sharing your story.
Appreciate it.
You betcha. And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.